So in this episode, we got a long time listener, 2 years. So you never know, team. You never know. If you're listening to this, you could be getting all that exposure. His name's Ryan, great name. And he's got a brand called Scendent. So Scendent. Good bloke. That's why it's thrashing his name throughout this podcast. But essentially, he's combining two interesting concepts. This idea of running events that help connect people, bring them together, and have a good time, while also half of the proceeds going towards helping people with their mental health. So you're having fun, and you're helping people that aren't having fun. Probably not a good way to describe that, but essentially it's quite an interesting piece to get some insight on younger people, what they're going through, and some of the movers and shakers out there trying to make a difference to the mental health problem that we have in New Zealand. 600 odd people die a year, which is too many for a suicide. So without me getting too deep into that, let's kick into it. Well, we've got a fellow Ryan on the podcast. Long-time listener, first-time guest.
Yeah. And it is freaky to be here after listening to the podcast maybe over 2 years ago.
Wow.
Two and a half, 3 years ago. I first searched it up on Spotify, NZ Podcasts. And here we are now.
Huh. Well, mate, maybe that's a good start. What appealed to you about the podcast that made you listen so long? Just so I can plug it in, testimonial.
Yeah, fair enough. Get the promotional material while you can.
Yeah, you can shit on it too. Doesn't have to be positive.
I would not on air.
Not on air. Off air.
So I was working a rundown job at the time. I'd just been through recruitment. I was a machine operator at a laser factory, and I'd heard some good pieces of advice like, "Why are you listening to music? You could be gaining more information." I mean, okay, let's listen to podcasts, and audiobooks cost money. I didn't have a lot of money at the time, so jumped on and was looking for different audiobooks, a lot of which are US based, which has no relevancy to New Zealand for the majority. And the number one that came up at the time was NZ Guide for Financial Freedom.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, let's listen to a couple of these episodes. And I just resonated with a few of them. I can't remember what the exact first one was, but it was something along the lines of just breaking down who you are, what you want to do, and then trying to figure out like where you're supposed to go. I can't remember what episode number that was for the life of me from that time ago, but wow. I just went, okay, this is relevant to New Zealand, and listened to a few other ones following there, and yeah.
Sweet.
It's been off.
I didn't tell Ryan's going to do it. Didn't plan to do that. Well, then the other thing, just before everyone goes down this deep dive, is what the hell are you doing? Like, what are you up to, brother? Yeah, what is it that you do, mate?
At the moment, I have just resigned from a job at a gate manufacturing company to further start a mental health brand I've started up called Scendent. It pretty much enables young adults to facilitate the change in mental health needed within their means. What that means is events, products, and t-shirts, apparel that all have profits going towards mental health. So young adults in particular, we all care a lot about mental health, but you can probably name on one hand, if that, how many actually donate. Whereas how many go to a festival, a concert, buy a t-shirt, buy something cool. Pretty much everyone.
It's a hard group to monetize, unless it's entertainment, which is a good point.
Exactly.
Because, there are most people are paycheck to paycheck up until 50, and even then. Like, even like, I think in 2013, 60 to 70% of people lived on an extra $5,000 a year on top of super, which at the moment's, give or take, let's say $27,000. So $32,000 a year. 60 to 70% of the population. So, yeah, I just thought I'd share that, give you hope.
Yeah, something to look forward to.
Yeah. So, okay. Mental health. I call psychologists wounded healers.
I think that's where I got you from. I think that's where I got that fact from. I think that's actually might have been what the first fact I resonated with was. Okay. You mentioned people who go into psychology or go into that field are trying to help themselves by going into the field. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know the episode, but this has been a new realization the last few years.
Yeah. So that was what I wanted to study going through school. It was marketing and psychology. And I had another few bits of advice that was, if you want to start a business, you want to be business minded, don't do that. But I remember hearing that piece of advice and being like, I've been pinned to a T. that was exactly me. Yeah.
Cool. Well, how about we unpack that? So, your dad didn't hug you, or what fucked up shit happened? What?
It's hard to say where the root cause of it was, but both, more so my dad had a really rough upbringing, and then because of that, he didn't learn positive ways to share that on towards me. So I was really verbally abused growing up. Nothing too harsh, but just kind of messed me up in a way where I couldn't express emotions properly, because when I got emotional, that was pushed away. And therefore, when I became emotional, which just happens with everyday life, I didn't know what was going on, and I'd pretty much just break down and couldn't communicate at all. So growing up, when you have that happening at school, other places, it's distraught, and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know this wasn't normal, and I only grew up to then being 17, when it's kind of that pinnacle transition point in life. I was just about to go commit to study, go to uni, do all this. This was all planning. I went up to Paihia for a New Year's festival. Had the best time ever. I'd also been in Indonesia before. I was staying there for a month with some locals, just surfing, living life pretty much. It was the paradise. Freedom as a 17-year-old to do what you want, surf, have a good time, be with your friends, and then I had to come home. Back to reality, where I couldn't have that life and couldn't be that, and everything just snapped. Everything went out of place for me, really. And at that point, I ended up going through the mental health system for 2.5 years. I went into Starship, through CAMS, variety of different medications, had to see a variety of different professionals, some private, which I funded for while working at the steel place, being an operator, and others that my parents fortunately have helped me get into as well. So that then cultivated me into having this brand. It wasn't straight away. I just kind of realized the things I went through, everyone's gone through in some different well or some different pathway of mental health. They've experienced it in some form, but not everyone gets the same opportunities to improve or adapt their mindset or get better. And brought me to Scendent.
Yeah, hey, look at
Yeah.
you working out these pictures, mate. Well,
Yeah.
that I think that's an important discussion to have. Is people go on the traveling, and I always say wherever you go, there you are. People travel to change themselves, but surprise, you change a little bit, but you're the same person that's upset here as you were over there, except you got bigger distractions.
Yeah, that's what all my friends seem to be doing at the moment. They're going on the big OE, everyone's finished study, go see a bunch of places, and they think they're going to find themselves, but I don't know if they really will, is the big thing.
Yeah, no, it's true, man. Wherever you go, there you are. So on that, there's probably quite a few people that have gone through either their mental health journey or, hey, I came back, what the fuck am I doing in my life? That's quite a common one.
Yeah.
So what is it actually like? So, you come back, you're feeling all kinds of fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents or friends recognize you need help, or what? How did that go about?
So I came back and sat down, family dining table, everything else, and I tried to say what was on my mind. I can't remember the exact details of the conversation, but it was just something pointless, and I just said, I'm not going to let you talk to me this way anymore. Went away, stowed away, just wanted to be alone, didn't get left alone. I got kicked out of home, and one of the passing thoughts from Dad was, "You're crazy." And I went, "Well, am I?" It was that whole loss of the concrete form of your reality that I think everyone goes through at some point in some time. You don't know who you really are or what you're supposed to do. And when you lose that, you kind of don't know the direction you're going completely at all. And it's having something there or a good process that you can kind of build up from that from. So I call that kind of the foundation. And if that's gone, it's a real hard turning point for people, yeah.
So what happened? So you get kicked out.
Yeah.
Dad says you're crazy.
He called me crazy. I went and stayed at a friend's house, and I was just like, well, if I'm now on my own, I got to figure out my life, get a job, still go to school, and do all this. I need to know if I actually am crazy. So I went and checked myself into the hospital and told the nurse, like, hey, I think I need a psych check pretty much. From there on, I was moved into the back. I think I talked to a counselor for a little bit of time. Then I was moved into Child and Mental Health Services, so CAMS in Tauranga. You go there on like a volunteer basis initially, and they kind of give you an evaluation, see if there's anything inherently wrong. From that, they lead me into going to Starship voluntarily. They give you some medication at the time, which I later found out wasn't actually good for me. It wasn't what I needed at the time, but I don't discredit medication. There's always a place for it and always a need for it in certain instances. And came home, didn't like what the medication was doing for me at all. And from there, I just pretty much went cold turkey on it. I didn't realize you're not supposed to do that with certain types of medication. And that kind of spun me the other way and sent me out, which then led me back to being into Starship involuntarily, which is a very different kettle of fish. It's the behind closed doors, nothing terribly like horror movie style like that, but it is in a very pleasant place. And a lot of that experience kind of opened my eyes into why people are in there. And it's because they don't know what's going on with themselves or how they're acting or what they're supposed to do. It's that unknowingness. So I was in there still messed up myself with everything that's going on, trying to figure out myself. But I was in there trying to help people and telling them, hey, you shouldn't be saying that, or you shouldn't be doing that, because that's just going to keep you in here longer. And they didn't even realize. These other kids in there didn't know that, if I keep acting this way, because they have these rules on the board and things like that you're not supposed to do, not supposed to say. I said, if you just follow that, you'll probably get out of here. But without that consciousness.
So you started planning great escapes, like prison escape.
Not quite, but there was...
Follow these rules, get out of here. This is how we get into your team huddle.
Now, sit down, had all the little bread scrolls around.
Dude, someone was telling me, they were suicidal. They got put into the thing against their will. And there was the basketball hoop was like 12 foot when they're 10 foot. So it's like fuck with the crazy people, you know what I mean? Like they're obviously not crazy, but that's rough. And then they also talked about someone walked into their room, was trying to kill them. Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff like that goes on. One of the things that pinched out to me is you're not allowed shoes with shoelaces at all. That was the most shocking thing for me. I had a pair of Nikes I'd got saved up for some of my pocket money for, and they came back with no shoelaces. And I'm like, what? Where's the shoelaces? Then they obviously have to explain it's because it would be an attempted method that they'd take the shoelaces off. Now, to this day, I still don't tie my shoes just because I don't know if it's subconscious or what.
Don't Epstein yourself.
Maybe.
That's not a good example. But so that's the fascinating thing to me. So I've heard of these places, and it's like people in their darkest days go there, and it's more dark in there than outside. And now I'm inspired. I'm happy now.
Yeah.
What's it actually like? So you're in there, no shoelaces, you're shuffling your shoes to keep them on. And then you've got like a windowless room, or you can see some level of sunlight, and there's like, do you get in a straitjacket?
So you can search up, Google search right now, mental health ward room. That's exactly what the room looks like. The exact Google search is exactly what the room's like. You kind of get set meals throughout the day. They give you medications at 2 set times, only a morning and an afternoon. Pretty much you're in a trance state. You have no idea what's going on. You're drugged up to your eyeballs, really. And then you get a counselling session either once a day or I think once every working day, 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. And they're pretty much evaluating you. You get a bit of sports time, and then one day they'll take you out to do activities or something. This is in the children's facility. I know it's very different in the adult sector. It's very, very different. I was there for a brief period as a transition part going in between. But it is exactly like what you'd think. You kind of... It's all kind of a blur because you're so medicated at the time. Some of those are sleep medication, antipsychotics. Lorazepam, for instance, it's like a calming... Is it lorazepam? Yeah. It's like a calming drug, so you just kind of like chill. So everyone kind of doesn't know what's going on, but everyone's real tense, has extreme emotions, and you're kind of guided along helplessly through this kind of journey until they deem you as being not at extreme risk. Then they kind of let you go. You go back home, and you have to check in with your counsellor. I think it was every day or once a week, depends on how they grade you. So it's a real shocking experience.
So you're there, you're shuffling, and then you go and you get these sessions, you're doped up, and everyone's walking around a little confused.
Yep.
Do you like confuse together? Do you like sit around in the grass together, or they keep you separate? How do you eat lunch? Like, I know
there's a little bit of like that. You kind of do branch together and do a little bit of things. It's in shared rooms, but they also try and like keep you separate. So the doors are all those mag lock doors at night in case anyone tries to do anything dangerous. And
wait, so you're locked in with someone?
You're not in a room, so you're isolated in your own.
Oh,
but it'd be like, I don't want to say prison, but it is kind of like that, where you're in your own room, magnetic door locks at night, your phone's taken away from you so you can get sleep, and
sleep. Just lie awake looking at the thing.
Pretty much. You've got these little... It's even like windows with bars on them, but they can't tell you it's a prison.
When does it open? So you go to bed at like what? You probably can't remember
I
out
can't
of it.
remember. No way.
So at some point, this, I mean,
Mm.
it's kind of helpful. Like it's fucked up, but
Mhm.
it's kind of helpful to set that structure of putting your phone away before bedtime.
Absolutely. I think that's a beneficial thing anyways. Sleep's so important for every day, and that 30 minutes of no blue light at the end, great for getting better sleep, for sure.
Look at that.
Look at me
Heard it
go.
here first, mate.
Yeah.
Inside scoop. Okay, so you get out and you're on these drugs,
Mhm.
and you're like, wait, I don't like these. I don't think they're good for me. And then you're like, cold turkey. What happened?
So you kind of go through a big withdrawal phase. If you think about it like in terms of brain chemicals, you're naturally getting these things that are normalizing you. So I was on mood stabilizers. So instead of getting everyday happy and sad, you've probably heard the term of everyone being numb.
Mm.
That's from those mood stabilizers. That's where the phrase kind of came from. As a numb generation, it's from being on antipsychotics or antidepressants. Same thing. You don't get those extreme highs. You don't get those extreme lows. You kind of just numb.
Mm.
So going away from that, your mood then tends to be very sporadic because you don't have that stability that you normally had in your body. So I would go completely off the walls, completely crazy, really.
Mm.
Yeah.
What would you do when you're crazy? I know. I mean, this is
Yeah, no, it's okay.
heavy, but it's going to help others.
Yeah, absolutely. So I became very fixated on ideas and things in that kind of realm. So I've always been a very ideas-y person. I'll have thoughts at 3 a.m. and that's why I have a notepad beside my bed to write them down. But the flux of ideas that came in would be unmanageable. So too many racing thoughts. You'd be talking faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And you just lose that grip of reality. So when thoughts come in so fast that you can't really perceive and break them down, you kind of lose that clarity and that reality from there as you go up and down the spectrums. So I went up into mania or hypermania, which is typically what happens. And the crash down is the depressive side. And it's how would I describe it? The fall from going from an extreme high to an extreme low is severe for a lot of people. I didn't get it so bad. I just mitigated it a bit more, kept myself busy as much as I could, and isolated, stayed home with a good support group.
So what happened? So you got these so many ideas that are flowing in like a flood.
Yeah, a flood of ideas.
A flood of ideas to the point where it's hard to differentiate between what's real and what's coming through your head. And then you get espresso.
Yeah, so it's almost like the thoughts stop in a sense. It all just stops, it all crashes, it all calms down. So you've had all these ideas, some absolutely brilliant gold mines, some that's an idea of an idea of an idea that doesn't really make sense anymore. Once you've had all this and then it just goes away, that shock of it just being, oh, what's going on? What's happened? There's something wrong with me. The doubts start flicking in, and that's kind of the crash that people see. So I was diagnosed with bipolar, which was since removed, but the whole, it's really hard for me to say what I had. I bring it back to childhood trauma and then not understanding myself and the way I work, the way I process, and working through some of the past experiences I had as well. Yeah.
Probably some heavy ones.
Nothing too crazy that comes to mind. I would definitely suggest never letting kids watch horror movies or anything like that. Did you ever watch those Nightmare on Elm Street movies?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah,
That's
so
a big name.
Freddy Krueger, right? The whole thing, don't go to sleep. I later grew up to have insomnia.
You reckon it's because of that?
I think so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe, I don't know. There's a guy Tony Robbins is working with, and he stuttered. And Tony Robbins found out that there was an experience in his past where basically when his mum and dad would fight, he'd watch this cartoon where the lead actor would stutter in the face of adversity. So he watched that, and then he started stuttering, and then once he became aware of it and shared it in a way that was constructive, he didn't stutter anymore. But it's a Tony Robbins video, so he's a bit more of a salesman than a psychologist, but he does...
Tried to read his money mastery book, but I couldn't get all the way through it. I got maybe a couple hundred pages in, and then just fell off.
Interesting. I never read any of his stuff. I just watch his videos.
Yeah, they come up everywhere, eh?
He's good.
He's a good speaker for sure.
Well, I mean, I want to replicate the similar thing, so I was like, why not copy him?
Yeah, doing some of the speaking.
Yeah, no, I love speaking.
Yeah.
Essentially, like it's a scalable way to help people if you support successful, say, CEOs and you focus on them, but then you use the money you have from the business to produce content and to do these free events. So a psychologist is limited on, let's say, 20, 30 people they can see in a week. Whereas if I go real in depth on, say, 5 CEOs each week, charge them more because we do strategic as well as mindset. And then you've got all this time and money to be able to try and make a difference. So that's what he does. He is a CEO whisperer.
The CEO whisperer.
And he does events as well.
Ryan, the CEO whisperer. Is that what you're
CEO whisperer. Maybe, mate. It's going to happen. I'm helping with the marketing to start with.
Oh, nice.
All right. So you're going hypermania.
Yep.
And then doubting yourself.
Mm-hmm. The depressive side.
And then what was your way to escape? I'm just going to push this button because it runs out every 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's all right. So the way to escape and the way I kind of got out of that was not actually going through the public health system, surprisingly. So the public health system wants you to decrease your meds and then they test if you're okay. Decrease your meds, test if you're okay. So at some point, it's not actually going to work. I started going to Dr. Steve Joe, who's how would I describe him? He was a pediatrician. Then he got into the natural side of healthcare, which was homeopathy, naturopath, and in a sense, he's got both sides of the spectrum in healthcare. So he's got full clinical commercial side, and he's also got the holistic side too. Went and saw him, and he identified I had nutrient deficiency, a mold infection, and set me up with a stream of different healthcare options, different supplements, things I should have, a diet I should follow, and need I tell you, the diet was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do. It was a dairy-free, sugar-reduced, no gluten diet.
Oof.
Can you name one food that doesn't have any of those things?
Nothing fun.
Water, at least. But
Yeah. Water.
yeah. So it was intense, right? But I did that for like a month and a half. I was still medicated at this time, and I also go to a chiropractor a lot throughout my life. The top 3 vertebrae in my neck are compressed from birth, and I just have to get manipulated and adjusted to kind of stop me from hunching over and looking back like something from Notre Dame. But anywho, so my chiropractor was the one that suggested me to go to Dr. Steve Joe. His name was Gabriel Lewis. He's a great chiropractor in town. I definitely recommend him. And got put on these supplements, good diet, and within a month, instantly started feeling better. And instantly, I kid you not. It wasn't straight away though. It's not like an overnight thing, but taking the supplements, being on the diet, I just started to feel clearer and clearer, like that fog fading. He then went back and tested me a month later, did his like homeopathy, how would I describe it? Like test pretty much. Noticed like the mold had decreased, I think it was leaky gut I had as well, improved, and it just coincided.
There's if you have yeast and sugar together, it produces alcohol. So if you had that in your gut, you're producing alcohol. You think about, the mood swings that you might have, the emotional unregulation, the irritability, the crash of energy.
Yep.
Makes a lot of sense. So there was this is a fucked up story.
Okay.
So I heard, see if you can work out what the problem was. So there's this guy, he's a principal, and he started walking around a city naked and talking about touching kids and stuff, like doing some really out the gate stuff.
I think I found where the wrong part is. That's
the problem.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, but what caused it is the fuck.
Okay,
so he's doing all that, and then so he gets admitted to hospital. And they're trying to work out what it is, did he have a psychological break? What led to this, for the most part, very, mature, had his life in order, and then all of a sudden just lost it.
Yeah.
So they're just going to give him medication. They're like, oh yeah, it's probably this, antipsychotics. Dug a little deeper. He was eating a lot of pasta. Actually, all he was eating. So what led to the breakdown?
So that's a really interesting point, firstly. So just pasta diet. Yeah. So I would be thinking, obviously I'm not a professional, I don't know the exact answer, disclaimer. But eating one type of food, like anything, you eat enough of anything and it's not good for you. If it doesn't have a balanced diet, especially, you're not getting the nutrients you need. If you're just eating, I'm assuming you're just talking like like macaroni cheese or something like that.
Nothing, pasta.
Just straight
like
pasta.
noodles.
Ramen noodle lifestyle.
Pretty much.
Okay,
Student
yeah.
life, but as a successful
But
person.
even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd be thinking, not enough nutrients to the brain, cloud your thinking, loses that touch of reality, loses that concrete.
So the interesting part about that is the medical system failed in that front until someone asked those questions to find out the diet. And the prescription, instead of antipsychotics, was multivitamins, a balanced diet. And then suddenly you came better.
Yep.
But then you got to ask yourself, okay, if this person was saying these things, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
But, never to be confirmed nor denied.
Yeah. Maybe it was on the pasta container or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, just read it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's messed up. But I think, like the average doctor's a drug dealer.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I shouldn't say absolutely. I think they have the intentions right, but it's the system that's kind of in place, if that makes sense. It's treat the symptoms, not the causes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And then also, who's going to fund the research? Well, you need drug companies to fund the research. Who's going to fund the education institutions? Well, drug companies. But they're all essential. There's a key component where if you've gone past a certain point, you need it. It's just we're reacting instead of being proactive. So what do you think, in your humble opinion, from your experiences in the mental health sector, where do you think they're coming unstuck, and where do you think might be some solutions to that problem?
Okay, this is a great question, firstly, and I love this topic. So I think it comes to a first part on the education resources we have out there. Through health and PE is the only time I can remember through school where we kind of got touched on the different pillars and things you need in your life. So something spiritual or purpose-based, fitness, mind-based, so learning something, and then diet and what you're putting in. So when that's a core fundamental for your life, why is this something that's taught in PE, not another big subject, and it's like one term, when it actually greatly impacts your life going forwards? So you're also never taught to actually deal with problems that might be happening at home. Students have no idea, like, hey, am I getting abused? Hey, is this going on? You don't know. Teachers might see that happening, but at that point, the child still isn't aware of it potentially going on themselves. So putting a resource or something out there for people to kind of understand, hey, this is life. This is what can happen. This is how I can understand myself, become conscious, and develop further in whatever way I want to go while you're trying to make these big decisions like uni, job, all this in the mix going on. You have no structure. I think that's where a lot of the chaos almost starts to begin for a lot of people's lives. And then after that, it's the big system problem where why is the first instance to go and give someone medication when a lot of people who go to therapy, and I've noticed that personally, is people just want to talk. They just want to vent. They want someone to listen to them, really. It's a big part of it, for sure.
Well, I think the average person feels ill-equipped, even professionals, to navigate that. I went through a phase recently where I was trying to think about what my product is from a mental health space. Narrowed it down to acceptance and commitment therapy and motivational interviewing. So that's what I'm going to use. But when I reached out to psychologists, no real number on their website. They got a 10-week waiting list.
Yep.
And then psychiatrists are even more challenging. They have to see their client within 15 minutes and make a call. I don't know how many new psychologists there are a year, maybe 10.
In this country? Maybe less.
Yeah, which is mad. So what do you think would be your resources that you would add to school? So your own personal journey and your your top tips, your mental health toolkit that you would want everyone to have.
Yeah. Okay. So if I was going to break it down with what helped me is firstly understanding the place you are. And the second step is figuring out where is your direction, where you're actually wanting to go. It doesn't even have to be tangible. Make a big dream, figure out what that is, and then figure out what key things you think you'd have to do. Top 5 habits, whatever you want to call them, and then plan them into your day, either at the start or at the end. Simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
So dream.
So the dream, the vision, it could be you want to be an astronaut. So what does an astronaut do? Studies 30 minutes a day, something to do with the astronaut field. I'm not a rocket scientist, so I don't know, but I'd assume it would be physics or calculus or something like that. So study a little bit a day, stay fit, stay healthy. So go exercise, good diet, and probably socialize a bit as well. And plotting that and scheduling your life with these little things so you can scale and go there Doesn't have to be doable, but if you're making the steps in the right direction, you know you're going the right way.
Yeah. My biggest achievement was starting.
Absolutely.
Because, I've like to think I've achieved some cool things. Don't give a fuck, to be honest. Like, I just like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. And then I just try and do the things I enjoy and outsource the rest. And so then I don't have to get to that shiny end. I'm just walking along the yellow brick road.
Yeah, I agree.
It's fun. So, okay, there's the young people. What do you think's going wrong? So, there might be some boomers listening to this, and they're like, oh, these kids just need to harden up. Like, why are they just crying? They're not at World War II or whatever.
Yes.
What's going wrong with these kids? Why are they so anxious and killing themselves and stuff?
Absolutely.
It's a bit heavy, but...
Yeah, well, we had 607 actually in New Zealand over the period of a year, which is a phenomenal statistic. That's absolutely shocking and appalling. I like to break it down almost and think, how much has the world changed in the last decade? We have cell phones now. We have a high-tech everything. But we have an education system and a cultural system, I'd like to put it as, that hasn't yet caught up with that. The amount of connectivity we have online versus in person and how we react with each other, it's completely polarized. So it's not that we're not going through a world war, but the world's just changed so much, and what we have in place hasn't caught up to cater with the people, is what I think is going to go on.
There's an interesting thing with drug addicts, and it relates to phones. So with their dopamine window narrows. So by that I mean dopamine's the chemical, it's the reward chemical to encourage you to go out and hunt the wildebeest even though it's hard. Like, fuck yeah, let's go get that wildebeest.
Let's get dinner.
Yeah, let's get some dinner. So if that dopamine starts to become very regular and accessible in the form of drugs, you can get your dopamine hit, boom, like that. You got it. So now the stimulus required to achieve the same level of dopamine is narrowed. Interesting thing about phones, when you look at your phone, you get a dopamine reaction. You get that so young, so readily, then the things that bring you joy have
you demand
decreased.
it like that. You're just expecting this instant hit. And this brings me on to another interesting point.
All right, go on then.
Yeah, so you think about it in the past, the adage that kids were always taught is, you can be anything you want. You can do whatever, you can be whatever. But no one's ever really told you have to work hard to get that. So then when you pair that with this instant gratification we've been given, everyone wants something and thinks they can be something and expects it now. So when that doesn't happen, you have no idea why, and everything falls apart.
So there's participation medal kids.
It's
he's
the
off.
participation kids. Oh dear. So I can distinctively remember growing up playing football and then the statement coming out, everyone's a winner. How does that make sense? What does that teach people? Just for turning up, you're a winner? Is it like that in the real world? Absolutely not. You do a bad job at work, your boss might tell you to get lost.
It's cold. It's dark world.
Yeah.
Fortunate my mother was like, oh, this is everything you could work on. I'm like, yeah.
I reckon that's better though. It's more constructive for you. You're like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, she's a incredible mum. It wasn't until I was like 17 or something. She's like, I thought my success was you. So I put a chip on your shoulder. And I think that's an important thing is like, the best parents, if they don't hug you at the right time, they've fucked you. Like, that sounds bad.
That does sound bad. Especially
just clip it. Just as well I edit the videos. Maybe someone else might clip it.
Yeah.
It's public domain. That's the place I want to get where people just edit it for me.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we live in a life.
Yeah. One day.
Yeah, one day we'll get there. Lost the whole chain of thought. But essentially, I think it's important to acknowledge that, parents will try their best and there's a lot of amazing things that they gave you. And just to take responsibility for the things that are within your control. So whether we're in a world where it's World War II, whether we're in a world where, dopamine's so regularly accessible, the only person that's responsible for our success or failure is ourselves.
Absolutely. I think we also look up to those role models we have growing up, whether that's a mother, father, some other role model you have in your life. You base a lot off them. So you had adversity. If you've seen adversity be hit by your father, for instance, and he backed away, you'll probably do the same. Whereas if it's things get hard, okay, why are they getting hard? Work through that. Is this still what you want to do? Okay. Constructive. So I think of any advice or anything you get growing up, if it's constructive, it's helping you. If it's just a don't get on the table or don't stand on the table, stand on the floor, there's a big difference there. You actually learn something from the follow on, whereas just the don't do this, not constructive. Yeah.
So if you want to stand on a table, you stand on a fucking table.
Yeah. Get up there, both hands in the air.
Yeah. Well, that is interesting. Like, I was looking at a clip recently. There's a guy, I think he interviewed 60,000 identical twins in the UK. And he found that 50% of a lot of personality traits are predetermined by genetics. And that fucked it. Because, that's one of the only ways you can do it is you look at these identical twins and some of them have been adopted out. Do they have similar attributes? And there's like a 50%.
Yeah. I think that's the nurtured versus natured debate going on there. Yeah.
So there's both. And then also the environment you have will determine whether a gene switched on or off. So I think it's important. They teach that in acceptance and commitment therapy is acknowledging that whatever experience or genetic misfortune or genetic benefit you might have, you have to accept it.
Yep.
And it's about not necessarily judging yourself for failing it, but just acknowledging that, this may be a part of you for the rest of your life. It may not.
You got to understand it to then move forward and construct and grow from that.
Exactly.
If you just presume you're the same as someone else, you're kind of just applying a cookie cutter model, and it doesn't always work.
Yeah, well, I've made a few controversial videos of late, so I apologize to the audience. I was talking about gratitude, and I didn't do it in the best way. But people got triggered by it about, that if you earn over 34,000, well, I rounded it up to 37,000 US. If you earn more than that a year, you're in the top 1% in the world.
Really?
Yep.
What?
Less than 900 million people in the world earn less than $1.25 a day.
Wow.
The pushback you might get, cost of living is high. Yeah, but you're not living in a shack in Joburg, and they're not going to burn you if you steal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what they do in some of the shanty towns there. So they got all upset at me. They're like, "Oh, Ryan, but like..."
But it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a balance. It's not to minimize a person's suffering.
No.
We all had the same emotions for different reasons, I find. So whether you're the rich guy, the poor guy, whether you've got the trauma, the no trauma, sometimes an ice cream upsets you and you're sad. Sometimes, you've had such a horrible encounter that it's just made you sad and angry too. They're not the same thing, but the emotion's the same thing. So I'm not here to trivialize things, but I feel gratitude has brought so much joy to my life.
Definitely. You got to be grateful for the little things. I think it's a big perspective thing entirely. Like, if you have no idea that there's that much of the world living below what we would deem as living means, a kind of perspective is like, hey, I can go down to the store and buy a cup of coffee for $3. That's a pretty good thing.
Bro, like, this is harsh. But and you're
right.
not associated to it. But like, there's all this narrative of inflation, the world's gonna end. It's like people's triple chocolate caramel latte is 30 cents more. The world's ending.
It's over. Inflation.
Yeah,
the recession's
it's
coming.
horrible. Depression, like fuck. And then you got this mother living in a car. She can't find a way to fund her kids' next meal, so she's drinking water so they can eat. Okay, that's hard.
Yeah.
Still, take responsibility of things you can control. Ask for support if it's there. But I just don't understand what's going on, man. Why are you guys so upset? Nah, it's everyone. It's not just young people.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
How do you feel about the world? Are you optimistic or pessimistic, or it depends on the day? I woke up this morning, the sun wasn't out. When I went for my walk, I was questioning things.
I'm definitely grateful for every day. After being in the place I was, do you know David Goggins? How he has the cookie jar model?
No, I don't know that one.
So the cookie jar model is you have these positive things that have happened in your life or things you've overcome, and that's a cookie. You put that in the jar, you save it for later, and then whenever things going bad, you wake up, you got a bad email from someone, it's a 1-star review. Oh no, the world's ending. You reach into that cookie jar and remind yourself, oh sweet, I got this really nice review the other day. Or it could be, I came over this the other day. I always use that model. So I wake up, feel stink, don't know why, feel kind of sick, remind myself like, hey, I used to be depressed every day. Life's actually pretty good. And reminding yourself, hey, I don't live in a shack. Not saying that that's a bad thing. You might love living in a shack.
I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah,
long
well,
as
it could be
didn't
good
leak.
for a period of time.
I lived in a tent for a year and a half. That was
True.
alright. There's cyclones. Bro, when you're trying to sleep till 10 a.m. and
Yeah.
the sun's out in Australia, it's 40 degrees and you're in a tent and all your clothes are molding because you can't afford anything. You're like, Shaq's alright.
Yeah, Shaq's an upgrade at this
Shaq's
point.
all
I'm loving
good.
this.
I've slept in Dad's shed because he was late. That was cold, and I had like a fucking painted sheet. You know how like you put the sheet down so you don't get paint on the grass?
Oh, you slept the blue tarpaulin kind of thing.
Yeah, but it was a sheet. But yeah, and I just pulled it over me, and it was like during it's cold. I don't know why she did that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I want to know how you got there.
I just wasn't home, and I didn't have a key,
Yeah,
so just slept there and then dealt with it the next day. You know what I mean? That's life.
it is.
So, well, we're at the 40-minute mark.
Oh, geez,
believe it or
that's
not.
flown by, hasn't it?
It has, mate.
Yeah.
So, apart from me like having a go at people, what's going on? So you quit your job.
Yep.
What's the plan?
So full-time send it, obviously.
Full-time send it. Is there a website? Is there
Yeah,
a
so
social?
sendit.co.nz, but it is in the lean stage, so
Okay,
everything's
so it
kind
sucks. Yeah.
of... It looks good.
Oh, it looks good.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay.
So mainly more prevalent on social media platforms. So obviously TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We do like events and things coming on. We're
What
trying
kind
to get
of events?
So the one we just had was a skateboarding themed event. The one before that was pretty much a gig. So a duff, you go in, get some drinks, listen to some music, and you're fundraising for mental health at the same time.
So duff. For those that don't know, there's a thing called a bush duff. Have you heard of those?
I have heard of the bush duffs. I've never been to a bush duff though.
Well, I was on a thing called the boom bus.
The boom bus.
It's a big bus that'd been stripped out by this hippie guy from South Africa, and he'd drive around Australia going festival to festival, taking an inordinate amount of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So I jumped on.
Yeah, of
I wasn't
course.
taking drugs at that time. Before I was.
Yeah.
Acid, all that good stuff. Don't necessarily do drugs, but if you're going to do it, in moderation, team.
And go for the boom bus.
Yeah, find out the guy with the mushroom hat. It's called the boom bus. I don't think it exists anymore. Bro, it was out the gate. But a bush duff is where you go to an undisclosed location, so the police can't find it, and then you go to next level, and then you have all this beautiful music where you're going around. So yours is obviously an indoor duff.
It was indoor outdoor, so the big thing is the COVID factor still lingering in the background of everyone's minds. It has to kind of be outdoor indoor / so it doesn't change from being say 1,000-person venue to 100 people overnight. That's critical for any event planning.
So what's the music?
So-
What are we duffing to?
House, D&B music, a little bit of rap in there too, just to kind of start the night off, but it depends on the location. So hopefully getting this Learn to Surf tour going from Auckland, so Piha, Raglan, back to Tauranga, Gisborne, and then Wellington. Starts off as a Learn to Surf day, get people to come along, everything going on, surf themed, that then eventuates into a duff at the end pretty much.
So you surf and then you duff.
Yep.
So do they pay for a ticket to get learn from an instructor?
Yeah, so learn to an instructor or just come out and have some fun, really. And then the tickets then come from actually going to the duff, so that pays for like the DJ to come on, all the lights, getting the drink stuff there, drinks obviously as well, if we can negotiate and get that going forward. And the rest funds going into the brand. So like I said, I don't know if I've told you, but I don't take any money from it at this stage. 50% goes to mental health resources. For the first one, we partnered with a local counsellor. So she got $2,500, which is 33 counselling sessions for people who meet her criteria. The reason we have a criteria is there can be a lot of people who feel like they have mental issues, but unless they've tried and experienced things and feel they're at that critical point, they're probably not the person we believe who should get help first. We want to help those critical people first. So it's then partnering with a counsellor in the Auckland area, Raglan area, Tauranga, probably still use the connection we have, and then Gisborne and Wellington as well.
Yeah. No, you got to prioritise. It's the reality. There's not enough people to help.
Absolutely.
So, okay, so you give some money, $2,000. What's the dream, mate? What's going to happen?
The dream, so the vision.
The vision that you talked about is the key to life.
Yeah, so the vision is... So have you seen the website like BetterHelp?
Nope.
So it's like an online counselling platform where people can go on, pay for counsellors. So if I was going to break it down to a business sense like that, it'd be like BetterHelp and say R&V had a baby and kind of came together, where R&V's profits and instead funding the BetterHelp counselling services. So that's kind of Scendent. So we'd have 4 events a year, 2 big ones being O Week and Rio Week. Other ones being little minor one. I shouldn't say minor, but different sorts of events. So particularly individual sports where someone can learn an individual sport which can benefit your mental health as well as have some fun afterwards as well. So all those things then coincide for funding the counselling sessions for people. So getting that set up into an international plane.
Gotcha. So pushback. People going there, unknown, taking drugs, drinking, getting all fucked up, and then they're unhappy. And then you're helping mental health.
Yep.
Is the party causing harm to the mental health, or what do you say to people?
The way I put it like this is already happening. That's already what's happening at the moment. So people are doing that, but instead they're going and buying a Benz the next day. So Scendent comes in and says, well, if this is already happening, why not it happen for a good cause? And then when you have this community that's coming along where they realize, hey, this is actually for a cause. It's actually for mental health. We found at the first event there was maybe a handful of people who kind of were in that bracket, out of control, running on the roof literally, and got kicked out by security. And everyone kind of respected, like, hey, we're here for this reason. When you have that cause and that positivity we're trying to promote, it promotes itself, really.
Look at that, eh? You're politician ready.
I have.
Politician ready. Well, I mean, that's the reality, I think. That people are... It's like phones. So people might say to me, hey, Ryan, you talk about phones and disconnecting, and yet you make all this content, and they're consuming it. You got to play the game.
Yep.
Chessboard's a chessboard, you know. I shouldn't quote that. There's someone that says that. If you know who that is, then good for you.
Paraphrasing.
Yeah, just stole it. Okay, so now the question is, there might be some level of successful people or some people that are either struggling and want to give back because of what they went through. What can they do, whether it's a sponsorship, like what would be their benefit in terms of sponsoring the event, or, you know, just donating, or, you know, sharing something? What could people do?
Yeah, so the everyday person, go check out what we do, check out our social media platform, give it a share, or even comment directly or send us a message. I'll connect with you, say hi, you know, do that kind of stuff. If you're looking to get involved or potentially invest with us, our events, currently we don't have any sponsors. This has all been funded off my back pocket currently at the moment, and it's everything I could want to do. So if you as an investor wants to come in, we'll chuck your branding on it and imagine what we could do from there. Extra money is going to exponentially grow what's already happened.
So there's just to push you a little bit, there's these fair good things, and mostly people want something, and they might be this, you know, Mother Teresa, but even she wanted something.
Yeah.
So let's say your biggest event, how many people came?
Biggest event thus far, we had 250 people there, 300 tickets sold. We had, from advertising revenues, over 50k eyeballs looked at it. Some of the content I've pushed at the moment has over 100,000 views. So getting that associated with another brand, it's a few extra eyeballs looking at stuff. And this is just the beginning too.
What would be like a dream company to have as sponsor? People listening to this, like, there's no value in this, Ryan. Why? We're helping a young bloke.
Yeah.
Do something. He's got a good name too. So.
Hard to say, but he has a good name indeed.
Great name.
The drink company I really like at the moment is Cocoa Coast. So they're like a coconut water company, but they actually make really, really good drinks. Okay. And it's kind of like that refreshing hydration, but also healthy at the same time.
Good point. So people that could service the event by providing a produce, and they could sponsor that, and that just adds to enhance it.
Yep.
And then maybe they could put in some money as well for the opportunity to have signage or to have mention or sponsorship. You know, the best thing about a young guy struggling, not struggling, but starting, is that you get a good price. You just like, oh my God, 10 grand. That's such a bargain when you're...
That's a bonus.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, all right. Well, you've already told us where the Scendent... Is there a next event that people can subscribe to? You said to Learn to Surf. Where is it? Is it on the Instagram, the Facebook events page? Or?
So it's still postponed to go up. We're still hunting and looking for a venue to go out. So until we have that locked in and set in, I don't want to blow wind up the company until it's at that point yet, but stay postponed online. It will be coming out.
Cool. So we follow you online and we look at your lean website. Do you subscribe on your website for anything, or you just look at it?
So sign up to our email page, pops up at the bottom, chuck your email in, and we'll give you an update with everything that comes out.
Got a newsletter. Are you using MailChimp?
We're not using MailChimp at the moment, just as things pop up and go out. I think it's just got a little directory email all button on the Shopify backbone.
Oh, Shopify.
Yeah. So I got a friend that works in Shopify, and he kind of helped me set it up and structure it out. And we're just kind of not toying with it, but structuring it all up. That's the phase we're at now, is get everything polished, get all the ducks in order, and start the growth from there. Even though we've already done events and we've sold a couple of things on the side, it's not the formality behind it, which is what we're trying to group together at the moment.
Look at that, mate. Look at that. Oh, well, we heard it here first.
Yeah.
Then you know where they are. If you want to join the Learn to Surf that's being postponed, and you will be notified. Or if you want to be first on the scene.
And send it.
Yeah, send it. Send some money. On that note, thanks for coming, brother.
Yeah.